offshoring them to Rwanda is going to make the process even longer and less efficient, and they're not going to have the access to legal aid that they do have here. And it's just another example of like criminalizing people.
In the case of Venezuela, that started more than 15 years ago. We are talking of a Venezuelan displacement that is reaching more than 6 million people.
The challenge there is, of course, that you have so many nationalities or ethnicities together in one country, always the same aim, to live peacefully together. And there is especially, of course, also the enormous challenge that we as humanitarians come from outside, hardly knowing the situation in which we are about to work.
This person who used to torture me 20 years when I was in prison, and after that he offered him a free meal. So this is a kind of a very great peaceful message that we can share with a lot of people in our world.
Welcome to Worldview. Here at Worldview, we explore everyone's perspectives on all things that can broaden our worldview. And today, we are hosting a much-needed discussion focusing on addressing the challenges to the humanitarian development peace nexus, the challenges and opportunities for higher education, but more importantly, for practice. And I am joined today by Esther, Rhiannon, Haider, and Angelo. And I thank you in advance for sharing your perspectives on the application in your professional spheres of the humanitarian development peace nexus. So to get the discussion going, I would like to start with you, Rhiannon. If you can please introduce yourself to the Worldview audience, and also highlight for us in the area in which you are working with the humanitarian development peace nexus.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Rhiannon. I work for a modern slavery response team in London. So I work with victims of human trafficking who mainly are also claiming asylum. I'm an advocate, so I help them with their entitlements under a European convention. With regards to the peace nexus, I feel like the main part of my work is focusing on the vulnerabilities after a crisis. So for example, when someone has come to the UK and they have claimed asylum, part of the peace nexus is development. And for the UK with asylum seekers, it's often that we work with we create an environment of negative peace rather than positive peace, where it's focused on immigration enforcement rather than incorporating everyone, including asylum seekers, to create a lasting and positive peace. And that's because those who vowed to combat modern slavery in the UK are also the same body that have quotas and immigration targets to fulfill. So it often criminalizes vulnerable people.
Thank you so much, Rhiannon. I would just like to kindly ask you to make a note, because I want to, after the introductions, loop back to you to start the conversation and to ask you to clarify for our Worldview viewers, what is the difference between negative peace and positive peace, please? But I'll loop back to you for the main discussion. I'm now going to give the word to Esther Grishnich. Please, Esther.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Esther Grishnich and I'm very Dutch, but working for almost 8 years now in the Middle East. First in Israel and the Palestinian territories. And in the last 3 years, I've been working as a country director for a Dutch NGO, ZOA, in Iraq. In Israel, I have been advising the European Parliament, and I worked a bit for World Vision, and also guided some peace negotiations between Palestinian and Israeli young diplomats. I'm in transition from being country director for ZOA to become a security advisor for human security advisor for the NATO mission in Iraq. And the NATO mission in Iraq has a focus on the security sector reform. So we are on invitation of the Iraqi government and I will become a civil expert for NATO, advising especially on the humanitarian affairs in the NATO mission. So very relevant, and especially happy to be with you.
Hello, everyone. If you're interested in advertising on Worldview, drop us an email at worldview.help@gmail.com. We will send you an advertisement guide, which will include the rates and the process involved. A typical shout out for your company or project will be between 45 and 60 seconds. By advertising on our platform, you'll be supporting a company that wants to improve the public narrative. Once again, send us an email at worldview.help@gmail.com, which you can also find in the description below. Now, back to the interview.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Esther. And I would also kindly ask you to specifically relate for us the application of the humanitarian development piece specifically to the security sector element in our main discussion. I now have the pleasure to introduce you all to Haider Al-Ithawi. Haider, you have the word, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. My pleasure to be with you. My name is Haider Al-Ithawi. I am from Iraq and work with UNICEF in the northern part of Iraq, based in Erbil, covering the emergency response and rapid response to the people affected by armed conflict, natural disasters, and crisis. I've been working in the humanitarian field for almost 20 years, started with the international movement of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies to work with another UN agencies, WFP, UN OCHA. Through all of these years, the main focus is responding on the needs of the refugees affected by the conflict in the Middle East, specifically in Syria, in addition to the Iraqis who were affected by conflict and displaced from their areas of origin to the displaced people camps. Within UNICEF, we mainly focus on providing life-saving assistance into another services like health and nutrition, wash, child protection, and education services for all of these people to return back to their areas. The main interesting part for me, we are now in the transitioning period from emergency response to the development part, and mainly focusing on Nexus and triple Nexus to support the affected people of these crises. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Haider. And if I can kindly ask you also to, in the main part of the discussion, to explain to us what are those measures and tools that you are using when you move from, as you were saying, humanitarian aid to development to reduce that dependency on donors and humanitarian aid. What are some of those best practices and recommendations that you can share with us, please? And then now we're going to go over to Latin America, and an immense pleasure to welcome Angelo. Angelo, you have the word.
Thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Angelo Gianturco Coletta. I'm an Italian Venezuelan citizen, now based in Caracas, Venezuela. Even though I have worked mainly in the private sector, I've been contributing with local NGOs in Venezuela for more than 10 years now. And now I'm in an international organization setting. I base my work in livelihood projects to empower women in Venezuela in urban and rural areas. And this is to create a path, the necessary path from a relief to development. The situation in Venezuela, it's different from other crises. And I think the new applications of the new way of working established by the UN has impacted very highly the way that we can intervene in different conflicts and new conflict settings.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Angelo, as well, as if we can ask you to really, in the main part of the discussion, to really dig down into, what are those differences and how do you then work with these differences in your context, but more as a strength rather than a weakness. So let's then start. And if I can ask, I'm going to ask Esther to respond to this question. The UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, said in his inaugural speech to the General Assembly in 2016, humanitarian response, sustainable development, and sustaining peace are the three sides that belong to the same triangle. Reflecting on your professional experience, do you agree with the statement? And if so, in which ways does your work relate to this?
Yes, I do very much agree with this statement. I've been working for 3 years now in Iraq, of course, in the aftermath of the conflict against ISIS. And as Haider knows better than me, as Haider is a local professional and I am only an expat coming in to serve his country, I have seen, of course, the struggle that Iraq has and currently still has, indeed, like moving from the emergency phase into the development phase. And the challenge there is, of course, that you have so many nationalities or ethnicities together in one country, always the same aim, to live peacefully together. And there is especially, of course, also the enormous challenge that we as humanitarians come from outside, hardly knowing the situation in which we are about to work. And only with conflict analysis, we cannot start to the best of our possibilities, of course, to move this country into a good direction. And still, the country of Iraq is so volatile. It's still a fragile state with all the challenges that we still have. And where to start is then the question. Of course, Guterres also poses this question with the same intention, that this, especially also now we are discussing the peace nexus.
Because Esther mentioned something that is really important, and that is how the international community would very often, with its expat specialists, go to conflict areas and bring their norms, their standards, their values to a local context. Can I ask you to please share with us, in your experience, how did you manage to work with expats so that everybody can focus on the real needs, assessed needs, rather than ticking the donor boxes in the report? Because at the end of the day, you deal with dignified human beings with lives that needs to be protected. And in your exchange with some of the expats, how did you manage to work so that they can understand there is the rule of law on the one side, that is the codified international laws and rules and regulations, but then each and every context has what's called cultural law. And this is where issues such as culture, indigenous knowledge, religion becomes much more important than so many of these international standards. And if you can share a little bit of us in some of your exchanges and experiences in order to deliver in a focused approach this humanitarian development peace nexus. Haider, please.
Yes, actually, this is very critical topic to be addressed. As Esther mentioned, that in Iraq, the context include multi-ethnicity populations, multi-religious people living in one country, and sometimes even with a small governorate, you can find a different population background, ethnicities living in a small area, like Kirkuk Governorate. It's a place in northeast of Iraq, and it includes all of the Iraqi ethnicities and religions in one place. And it's for a long time, it's a kind of a contested area because it's wealthy of a lot of oil resources, and all of the governments are chasing to get the control of this area. Following the crisis that happened due to the conflict between the Iraqi authorities and the extremist group that what called Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, ISIL, it's highly affected these areas and led to the displacement of people, demolish of houses, and damage in the areas, and even cracked the social fabric of people who used to live in the same area for ages, and changed the context between what we used to face as an international conflict between the Iraq and other countries and states, into a local conflict between those population who used to live together for a long time. Having the international experience and expats responding to the conflict needs and to the population needs, it's very important by bringing another experiences from another context face similar challenges to our country. So we don't have to start from scratch or from zero by having all of these response plans, rules and regulations and activities to apply and respond to the needs of the affected people. Myself, I have been engaged with a lot of international humanitarian actors and practitioners from different countries, and we managed to operate and collaborate in a very good manner by respecting the rules and also the habits and the manners of the local populations. There is two standards for any new international staff deployed in Iraq. One, the first one is the professional one. That's totally linked to the mandate of the agencies and to the program to be implemented. The second one is the culture-wise, what to do and what to not to do in order to respect the values and the habits of the communities that we are engaging with.
Thank you so much, Haider. Rhiannon, if I could please, in your opening statement, you mentioned positive and negative peace. Can I please ask you to expand a little bit so that our worldview audience can understand what's meant by the positive peace and a negative peace, please?
Yeah, so the positive piece would focus more on building trust networks across communities, hybrid coalitions, shared narratives, and creating more a transformative coalition across all different sectors to create lasting peace. Whereas the negative piece, it's almost as if it quashes out the fact there is a crisis happening, and it focuses on keeping the status quo, security, enforcement, and so it's almost like for example in the UNITAR modules we learned about the moral imagination and the cultural iceberg, and it's accepting the influences of other cultures and working together to create a lasting peace, and actually realizing that the quality of lives on others impacts the quality of our lives too. And I think that with my work, especially with victims of trafficking, a lot of clients are female clients of sexual exploitation. And one of the Sustainable Development Goals, number 5, is women empowerment and equality. And to address that, we would need to be actively engaging with the women who come here, and a kind of a bottom-up approach, sharing their narratives, liaising with other organizations. Whereas actually here we're creating a negative piece, in that they claim asylum or they get criminalized for prostitution. So they're put in immigration removal center, or they're put in prison. And actually, because they're in the National Referral Mechanism, they should be protected. So it's now our job as advocates to get their stories out there and actually advocate on their behalf that they're not criminals. And they can, a lot of them are very clever, educated people. And also during COVID, we learned that we need key workers, we need unskilled labor, and it's boosting the economy. And so it's about utilizing everyone's skills, whether they're high skills or low skills, to create a positive and lasting peace, rather than criminalizing vulnerable women and men, and actually kind of forcing them into situations where they might be re-exploited.
And I dare to ask you, so the UK government, the British government, have recently made announcements where they said refugees, unentitled refugees in the UK will be sent to Rwanda. Is that a sample of a positive piece or a negative piece?
A negative piece, because it's not addressing the root causes of anything. It's not addressing why these people are here. It's just offshoring them to another place. And for example, victims of trafficking in the National Referral Mechanism, they have it runs parallel to their asylum claim. So they need to gather evidence of things that have happened to them, and by offshoring them to Rwanda is going to make the process even longer and less efficient, and they're not going to have the access to legal aid that they do have here. And it's just another example of like criminalizing people and sending them to Rwanda to carry on with the asylum process. It's just going to delay everything, and it's not actually addressing why they're here. It's not working with them. It's just a matter of, it's administrative. It's completely administrative. So it's not going to work towards creating a peace, and it's just going to be impossible for them to share their narratives with people, and actually to kind of be the trainer as catalyst approach, where they could actually inform and shape like how we respond to it here, rather than just kind of putting the problem elsewhere.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Rhiannon. Angelo, back to you. I would kindly like to ask you to expand a little bit more on what you mentioned also during your opening statement, that the implementation and the deployment of the triple nexus in your context is somewhat different. Can we please ask you to break down for us what specifically are those elements that are different, and how do you then deal in making sure that you can start to implement certain elements of the triple nexus?
Yes. So if we look at our current situation worldwide, conflicts are still rising. We have a number of refugees and displaced people across the globe. There is also a rising number. And the nature of conflicts are changing as well. In addition to the traditional arms-based conflicts that we always had, now we have different kind of conflicts that demands different kind of actions as well. But the main problem with humanitarian aid, in my opinion, is still funding. We are talking that an intervention lasts on average 9 years, and is not sustainable. And that's why it was so important to change and implement this new way of working, established in 2016 with the triple nexus. In the case of Latin America, we have conflicts that come from a protracted political crisis. In the case of Venezuela, that started more than 15 years ago. We are talking of a Venezuelan displacement that is reaching more than 6 million people now between refugees, considered refugees in Latin America, not refugees by the UN or elsewhere in the world, asylum seekers and economic displaced people. So it was very important for us to establish mechanisms that could be applied national and regional to not only deliver the relief that they need in this moment, inside and outside Venezuela, but to create solutions that they can take, that the beneficiaries and the affected people can take by their hands in order to create and boost their resilience and create a sustainable solution to the problem. So that's where the Triple Nexus come into action. And the program is not mandate focused, but problem-based approach, which is fundamental to pave the way and achieve this sustainable solution.
Angelo, I'm going to challenge you a little bit by asking, based on what you just said, specific to Venezuela, do you then believe that the specific characteristics of contemporary challenges, conflicts, crises, war is still applicable to the Triple Nexus, or the reverse? Is the Triple Nexus still applicable to the complexity of current challenges, conflicts, crises, and wars?
I think the Triple Nexus was an answer to create a new system that could effectively achieve and tackle the new kind of crisis and the challenges that we have facing for the last 20 years in the humanitarian sector. And specifically in a different context, like the Latin American one, I think it's a perfect almost solution to it. There are still challenges within it, but the transmissible information that we now have because of the Triple Nexus to local actors, local NGOs, aid just to create more actors in the field, in the field that can actually contribute to prevent new crises, which in my opinion is one of the main purposes of the Triple Nexus and the new way of working.
Thank you so much, Angelo. And then to all the panelists, let's change gears a little bit and let's look now at training, development, and education programs. What can be added to the value of higher education programs in the areas of humanitarian action, peace building, and development in addressing the current realities of conflict, war, and crisis? Haider, if I can ask, it's the same question for all of you, but if I can ask Haider to please share some of your insights, recommendations.
Well, through the history and the information that we have been looking through the study that we went through, the program of humanitarian action and peace building, the classical way of the conflict all over the world, that there is a kind of conflict over the resources, there is a kind of different motivations that lead to the conflict between countries. Nowadays, the context has been changed, and looking to the recent conflict between Russia and Ukraine, all of that is happening as a kind of a conflict on behalf of another, let's say, axis all of the world. There is no direct threat or impact between these countries, but again, the war has started and God knows when it's going to be over. The same intention expected between China, Taiwan. The same thing is happening currently between Iran and Iraq. Iran start, let's say, attacking some tactical positions inside Iraq, and allegedly they said that we have received information there is a kind of threat against the national security of Iran. So I believe that these conflict analysis need to be integrated within the current studies and terminologies that we are dealing with to have a better understanding on the future conflicts.
Thank you so much, Haider. Rhiannon?
So working in a post-conflict environment, I think it's important to know that, to realize that conflict still exists in post-conflict environments, in the sense that we, during the Masters, we touched on limited democracy, and as the UK, we're a democratic country, but what we must realize is that we are limited in the sense that we silence the voices of whole portions of our society who have fled conflict zones, and that exacerbates the conflicts here. It creates social tension, structural violence, institutions that divide self and other, British and non-British, and you can see it every single day here. And one of the main things is like even the concept of aid, like in financial aid. So even here, the UK taxpayer, you often see statements of asylum seekers are money scroungers, when actually they're not. People don't realise they're not allowed to work, they're not allowed to rent, they're also not allowed to vote. And they're like, the UK taxpayer is paying for them to be in 5-star hotels over COVID, but they don't want that. They want to work, they want to rent, they want to choose where they live with their families and children. And I think that this concept of a limited democracy is key, in the sense that we are completely silencing massive chunks of our population who are skilled people from overseas, and they can help. They want to contribute in a capitalist society, and they often find meaning through contributing. So I think that's huge, in the sense with the triple nexus, is that we are silencing people, so we can't develop, and it's just going to be an ongoing loop. So I think that's the main thing to how I work.
Thank you so much. Esther?
Well, back to your question, if you believe that more attention should be given to the triple nexus in education, that's for sure. I think definitely new concepts that we develop in the humanitarian sector, in the field, that should come directly to education, and often it's also the other way around. And I think this is what we exactly do in the humanitarian and peacebuilding course, that we are discussing with other colleagues from the field, from very direct and relevant perspectives, together these kind of experiences from theory into practice, and also the other way around. And I very well remember in my groups that we discussed during the group work, we have very heavy discussions on certain subjects, and which are so meaningful for me in my context of Iraq, also relating it back to the conflict between Israel and Palestine and so on. And I think that's relevant and so useful. So more attention should be given, especially also try to relate it into the practice. Like, we should not find out the wheel again, as we say in Dutch. But yeah, sharing it together, that brings huge benefits. And that's why I also believe that we as humanitarian professionals should continue to train ourselves and to be eager to learn and to look into the theory that has been developed for us, also based upon huge practices. So that's kind of a gold mine for me to dig in, and which I use every day into my field practice.
Thank you so much, Esther. Angelo, your thoughts on this question, please.
I will have to agree with both Haider and Esther on this one. I think the triple nexus, due to its new development, lessons learned and cases examples need to be shared among the practitioners around the globe. And I think this is a missing piece. An academic setting not only provides us with new literature and going deeper into context analysis of similar situations, but also creates a network among the students practitioners to share the lessons learned, this experience in applications of the triple nexus in different contexts, in different regions, with different problems. So yeah, I agree with Esther, that's fundamental.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Let's stay with education for the moment, because I would like you to share with us, so what was in your experience when you did the Humanitarian Action and Peacebuilding program? What were the main elements that you believe you took away from this program in terms of skill sets that you can add to your professional capital? Angelo.
This is going to be a bit informal, probably, but what I have learned, what I have learned, and I come once again working more closely with local NGOs. So when I started the program and through its development, I was very eager to prove that local agents were fundamental for the success of a program, of a mandate in a specific country. And throughout the program, now that I'm at the end of it, I have learned that we need to not only do a context analysis properly, especially for the international organizations, and a conflict sensitivity analysis properly, but we need to keep listening, locals and international, all the time. The communication line is vital for a proper progression of a program in both ways. And that's what I took from the program and all the staff and the professors and my colleagues.
Thank you so much. Esther, back to you. You are mute.
I would almost say, what not? I have learned so much from the courses, and I also echo what Angelo was saying. To be honest, also a bit personal. In my practice as humanitarian or a director for my NGO, I often have felt so lonely in the problems that I faced. And then I also was reading it back into the theory and discussing the same problems in practice with my other colleagues. So that felt less lonely, but also I realized it's kind of normal. These kind of problems, they do occur in the humanitarian sector, and especially in the emergency phase when everything is so chaotic. But I also remember that the course on communication, leadership and self-management, but also on sensitivity, working with the local organizations together. My personal essay that I wrote about that was really a hit in Iraq. I have sent it around in the NGO directors group, and they all recognized it. And it was, really something that I found and discussed into my group, and also was so relevant for others to recognize and know. So it's kind of on a daily basis, especially now I'm preparing for my new assignment, for my new job. The current module is also really excellent, an excellent preparation, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands is quite happy about it, I can say.
And you tempt us, but you don't give the secret away. So what is the current module you're referring to?
So our current module is about post-conflict stabilization and recovery. And it has a special focus, of course, also on establishing governance. So it had a whole good governance paradigm, but also, of course, it relates also to the peace nexus and the stabilization factors, root causes of conflicts, prevention of conflicts to be happening again. So it's the first 2 reading weeks, but I can tell you that I'm very eager to go and move more into the module.
Thank you so much, Esther. Haider.
Yeah, actually, when I joined this program, before that, I have been looking for a specific master studies that can enrich my knowledge over the humanitarian experience that I have for a long time, until found the UNITAR Oxford Brookes Humanitarian Action and Peacebuilding, which is very much in line with the humanitarian actors' careers and work that they are engaged to, and also the list of the models and the topics that we have with all in all within this study. It's really informative, and it's guided me through different layers, as Esther mentioned, starting from self-management in conflict settings, and to conflict sensitivity and conflict transformation, and end up in the post-conflict stabilization and recovery. It's a kind of harmony between these topics from A to Z, and totally linked to the context in Iraq, where we face all of these related topics. On the other hand, I have been engaged in a lot of network group meetings, cluster meetings, interagency meetings, and when I was listening to the other colleagues who were analyzing the context and the situation, I was thinking to myself that they might speak in a different language, which is I'm not familiar with. By start studying this course, I was really touched base on the all of the basic information that lead to increase the humanitarian actors' knowledge and experience.
Thank you so much for that, Haider. Rhiannon, please share with us your perspectives and your views, please.
So I mean, I finished the course about a year and a half ago now, and it stays with me every day in practice. I definitely relay what Angelo said, in that I think the main thing I've taken away is that you have to give the people voices. It can't just be imposed upon them. So I think it does take a bottom-up approach, and to be culturally and conflict sensitive. I think that a trainer as catalyst approach is really key, in the sense that it gives people who have been through conflict a voice to be an agent in post-conflict recovery. I think that it's easy to deem people as victims. I think that the perception needs to shift to give them the agency to create and shape the future, because only then will we ever create a lasting peace. If we silence the people that have been through the conflicts and probably know it better than any of us, I think that what the history is just going to replay itself. So I think that cultural sensitivity and utilizing everyone as agents and giving everyone a voice and sharing narratives is essential.
Thank you so much. What's really fascinating is you all come from different professional but also cultural backgrounds. You've all studied this or continue to study this humanitarian and peace building program that's with the United Nations Institute for Peace and Research, UNITAR, and Oxford Brookes University. What I would like to ask you, because a lot of you focused on the skills and the attitudes and the values component, but how do you, excuse me, how do you, because an academic program of study at a master level, how do you balance the rigor of the academic components, critical thinking, analysis, evaluation, and linking it so, as you also elegantly and succinctly said, giving the voice to the people. So what is so unique in the program that facilitates the scholarly elements, but also the element of skills and attitudes and values that seem to be so strong in this program? And if I can ask Haider, then Angelo, Rhiannon, and Esther. Haider.
Thank you so much. Before answering your question, I'd like to touch base on how can we connect what we have studied and reflected that on our daily basis work and on the ground to support people that we are dealing with. From my perspective, I was thinking for a lot of time to find a way on touch base on the root causes of the conflict and the possible way to sort it out, to find a solution for the people to live in peace together, and also to get rid of all of these challenges that lead to the conflict. So by the end of my study, I was working on selecting a topic that somehow can help the affected people. So I am currently working on my dissertation, which is the impact of the durable solution to solve the challenges of internally displaced people back to their areas and live in peace. So somehow I integrated all of the experiences, knowledge that we get from the program, align with the challenges on the ground, and create a kind of a case study for the future work. Besides that, there was a lot of messages that I get through the models and the studies that we went through. Transferring these messages is super helpful to change the behavior of people, especially those who are impacted by violence. And it's very easy for the extremist group to attract those people again and create another cycle of conflict. However, if we manage to transfer the peaceful message to those people, that will create a new values and a new peaceful environment. It will be more strong and can be followed rather than leaving those people like neglected.
Thank you so much, Haider. Angelo?
I believe the success of this master program is that it is flexible, yet very interactive. While doing the program and working at the same time, we have the possibility to directly implement and practice what we have learned during each model. But also we have the possibility to remain in context with the problem we're working on. And I do believe that's what makes possible this link between the academic literature and transferring this into practice, because it's right away. There is not a waiting time between the application of what we learned and see how can be applied into each and every one of our contexts in work-wise, I mean.
Thank you, Angelo. Rhiannon?
I actually think the beauty of the course is that that like we want to give local people a voice in our master's degree, the master's gives us a voice, and it's very much we as students can kind of shape the trajectory of the modules. So you can, like Angelo said, you can adapt it to what you're working on the ground. I think that it gives you the flexibility to focus the modules on something that you're interested in or you're working on or that you want to explore further. And I think that because it's such an international master's, it also kind of adheres to the triple nexus in a way, because it does promote international cooperation and discussions, and the weekly forum and the different lecturers we have in to discuss matters across the world really challenge you academically, but also make you think daily in a different way, really. So when you do approach work as a working professional, you are in the back of your head, how can I be culturally and conflict sensitive? How can I work in a non-symbolic violent way? So it's just, the master's is amazing in that sense. And from an undergrad in UK institution, I think this master's like nothing else. It does really kind of share the cooperation internationally that the Triple Nexus is asking for.
Thank you so much, Rhiannon. And Esther, if I can ask you, so the Institute for Training and Research in Oxford Brookes Master Program, how is it delivered? Because I would like you to also clarify for us. So how do you manage going to varsity and, you know, you sit in Iraq? How do you manage that?
Yeah, indeed. Like, so people say you're crazy. You have one of the busiest jobs and then you're also studying. But I also have always seen it as kind of enrichment to myself. So if I'm so tired in the evening, I still find an hour or shorter, sometimes longer, to study and to engage with the other colleagues. And I also would strongly also mention how much they have supported me, the other colleagues. And I have tried to support also others, colleagues that are working in a Rohingya refugee camp, or that are working in a famine in Africa, or others who are studying from Australia or the States, that are especially interested to support us as field workers. So that has been always so helpful. But yeah, for me, of course, going more towards the essay deadlines, it is a lot of work, and sometimes I take a day off, but I have, I think, never passed the essay deadline. So it is very doable. And also the group work is flexible. Also the tutors in the course are so helpful and understandable, as they always also have some field experiences themselves. And here I would also like to mention that every single essay that I wrote for the course, I started with an example from my very practice. So directly relating that towards researching the theory, building a kind of framework in these essays. Yeah, it was just wonderful. It absolutely worked for me.
So is this program entirely online, or do you go to campus as well?
In principle, it is totally online. So you have an every week hour of reflection and discussion, and also sometimes you have a special lecture. But you can do it totally online when you contribute in chat boxes with a weekly team or weekly questions, where you like relate back to the theory, but also give your very own examples from the practice. And then, of course, you have the group essay work, and you have your own individual essay work where you show kind of your capacity of everything what you've learned in the course. You're muted.
You're muted.
Thank you. We have about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to start to focus on the concluding elements. But before we do so, can I please ask you, do you think that access to these learning opportunities by professionals, because normally, and you all to a large extent said, you know, I'm a working professional and I didn't thought that I would be able to have the time to engage in my professional development, let alone a master program. So the question that I have for you is, do you think, what is missing, that there are not more practitioners and field professionals whose their hesitation to engage in such a program to develop both the knowledge construct component, but also those development which you've also eloquently highlighted, the professional capital skills, but more importantly, the attitudes and the values component. So what would be your recommendations to say, you know, how we can draw more professionals and field personnel to follow similar programs for their professional development? Angelo.
I think promotion on one way is surely necessary. And when I say promotion, I refer to a more thoughtful spread of the word among us. And I think that happened already, particularly with the Humanitarian and Peacebuilding program within UNITAR and Oxford Brookes. I know for a fact, and probably Haider is going to comment it later, that he has recommended this master to several of his colleagues, and they have joined. When you talk about the master program and you talk about what you learn, but also the possibility and the flexibility it's offered as well to enter for the admission, because not being in campus program, you don't need to go through the visa procedures, and you can do it while working on the field, as well as the flexibility to accommodate your studies to your work schedule. And I think when people realize that directly from other students, they are gonna see that it's possible, and probably they're gonna join more.
Thank you, Angelo. Esther?
Yeah, I'm impatiently waiting to answer this question, because I believe that not only I have been better at what I'm doing as a humanitarian, also my organization in Iraq has grown because of all the information that I have passed and the articles that I have shared, but also my organization in the Netherlands. With the research that I did on some teams, also the advices that I gave to move in a certain direction strategically based upon what I have learned in the course. But for example, I have also suggested diplomats from the Dutch embassy in Baghdad to start this course, as it was so relevant. And I think they are seriously thinking about it. So I believe that every humanitarian worker that has an interest in leadership and fieldwork, should be interested to take this course, as we definitely, we do become better. And also what I would like to stress here is, you know, we in like 20 years ago, we would have approached also this course in a very different way, because we are rethinking and we are developing ourselves on what we are doing. And sometimes I ask myself the question, when I will be looking back at my career, early career in Iraq, like, did I do the right things, you know? And am I staying critical what we have been doing, or what we are doing or about to do? And you do not ask naturally these questions if you don't study, and if you don't compare what you are doing with other examples around the world. So I think it's so essential to have people in your organization taking these kind of courses.
Thank you so much, Esther. Rhiannon?
So for someone, I actually wasn't working in the humanitarian field when I started this master's. I think it's also really important for people to also know that that's okay. I actually obtained my job now in the humanitarian field whilst in my final year. So, but it was, I actually felt much better prepared for a job with asylum seekers during the master's, because I'd learned so much professional development during the course. And you learn so much from other people on the course. I feel like it's like a master's like no other, because you are constantly engaging with people across the world. And actually the brilliant thing is that you do have timings that are kind of quite strange when you do a group work meeting, because you are like trying to work out what's the best time for everyone internationally. So often it doesn't conflict with the work schedule. You could do it early in the morning or in the evening. But also I feel like it's so flexible. You have plenty of time to do the assignments, and I think that you get so much support from the tutors, from the lecturers, from other students as well, but also to in your head to kind of mentalize it as in it's all together. Your job and the masters is one thing, because a lot of people will have professional development days, and I think where we're in such a fast-paced working environment, it's good to take that time to join with others and reflect on actually what's going on and what's happening, why we're acting like this, and like the theories behind everything. I think only in that way we can actually in our professional jobs move forward.
Thank you so much, Rhiannon. And my good sir Haider, your comments, please.
Yeah, I really echo on what all of my colleagues mentioned about the master itself. And I believe that there is a kind of initiative that can help to increase the number of participants in that study by increasing the advocacy of that program. Looking to the social media and looking to the advertisement shared on different platforms, we can receive on daily basis different advertisement on master studies from another universities, while I haven't received none from Oxford Brookes specifically on that topic. I was informed from colleagues about that topic. So increasing the advertisement and sharing the program with the humanitarian actors, with the UN agencies, and with the development centers, that can help to increase the number of participants. On the other hand, sharing the type of study, as my colleagues mentioned, the flexibility that we have, the friendly environment that we get through all of these models, especially that for me, I have get through all COVID pandemic through focusing on the master study. That's gave me a lot of time to think and focus of the study. And beside that, we have the monthly virtual coffee where we met on monthly basis to discuss different aspects, different issues rather than the master study itself. And that, let's say, give us more connections and strong relationships among each other, students, our professors, facilitators, and tutors.
Thank you so much, Haider. You touch on something that I believe we have all learned from this COVID pandemic, how important the well-being of our colleagues, of ourselves, of our students, of our clients, the issue of well-being, how important that is. And it's by having just these discussions on a regular basis where you actually focus on the person that you have in front of you and to have these really focused discussions. Thank you. I'm going to ask you to wrap up, but I want you to please consider your concluding statements in the form of, if you were given the opportunity to write a postcard to that one person that you believe is so influential in the world or in your work, who would that be, and what would you say to them about the humanitarian development peace nexus? And if I can ask you, Angelo, to start, please.
I think it's very difficult to choose a particular person in the world. I will say to civil society in general, whatever region that is. And what I will say to them is that humanitarian assistance remains necessary to save life. That's indisputable, but it's not sustainable in the way we apply it today. And that's why the application of the triple nexus to provide a sustainable and local solution to it is fundamental. The importance not only for international NGOs and for other international actors to understand that they need to empower and include local agents, but also the civil society needs to understand that they don't only require relief, they require the proper tools for them to develop their system, their solution. So I think that will be my specific message.
Thank you so much, Angelo. Rhiannon?
So my postcard could be slightly controversial. I would probably send a postcard to the Home Office, particularly Priti Patel, and I'd ask them to, in my line of work, to listen to people who are coming here, listen to asylum seekers, listen to those who have come from areas of conflict. Do not lock them up. Don't deprive them of their dignity. Listen to them as agents. I would say that with the triple nexus, only then can we actually establish humanitarian aid that is sustainable abroad, by listening to people that come here, what they want. They don't want to flee their home countries. So what they want to happen in their home countries. We need to work out, we need to listen to them, to develop what the systems we have here, to then be able to implement sustainable humanitarian aid and create long-lasting peace. So that would be probably my postcard.
Thank you so much, Rhiannon. Haider.
Yeah, actually, when you ask that question, I don't know why the first person came to my mind is Nelson Mandela. This person had fight a lot to support the peace worldwide and peace building, and he shared a lot of documentaries and books and journals about supporting different contexts and cases all over the world. And I remember one of the examples that he shared through his diaries, that one day when he was released from the prison, he asked his friend about a person who was sitting at the same place, and he told him that this person who used to torture me 20 years when I was in prison, and after that he offered him a free meal. So this is a kind of a very great peaceful message that we can share with a lot of people in our world.
Thank you so much, Haider. And I'm sure where Nelson Mandela is sitting in paradise, I am sure he is smiling down and thanking you for those comments. Thank you. Esther.
Maybe also a bit unexpected and controversial, but I would send a postcard to Mr. Al-Kadhimi, if I pronounce it right, Al-Kadhimi, from the Iraqi Prime Minister at the moment. He is forming his new coalition, and he himself is a peace activist. So I would say, Mr. Kadhimi, you have an enormous responsibility to unite your country. And I've seen also the beauty of your country and the possibilities that your country have in the past 3 years, and I hope also the coming years, to help and to serve in Iraq. But at the same time, I really hope that the new government will do and make an effort to materialize the ideas in the peace nexus for the betterment of the nation of Iraq. And I think then, if all the efforts are united, a bright future can be potentially waiting for Iraq.
Thank you so much, Esther. And allow me, please, and I ask you to join me, because the one thing that I have learned from you today is how important it is to have discussions with the community and to really validate the voice. And so on that, please join me, and I would like to address Haider and our worldview audience, who are shortly going to be celebrating Ramadan. We wish you a very blessed Ramadan. And Esther, Rhiannon, Haider and Angelo, thank you for sharing your perspectives on the application of the Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus. Thank you also to Worldview, where we explore everyone's perspectives on all things that can broaden our worldview. Thank you so much.